the next thing I wanted to chat about, we just talked about Hannah taking action. And I have a little section I want to read just because I'm so impressed by how you write your action scenes. So this is, again, near the beginning of the book, the same chunk we're talking about. It's like the 25% mark. I think why I'm so enamored with it is because it's really hard to write that sort of transition, that like plot point one or like break into two, and this is kind of right where it is. And the action here, so I'm going to read this. So it says, or you wrote, Hannah fell on her backside and cried out, quickly flipping onto all fours to spring back up. But someone snatched her ankle and tugged it from under her. Hannah's body slammed to the ground, leaving her winded. Someone crawled on top of her, grabbing a fistful of her hair and lifting her face from the rock. What is wrong with you? Mikhail asked. I love that because at every single point, I was so sure exactly what was happening. And I could see it so easily in my mind, what they were doing. And again, I think I'm interested in it because it's something that I also want to work on. I have trouble picturing sort of the bodies and the movement, the pushing, the pulling, etc. And I think you did such a great job with like the senses and the visceralness of it. And I would love, like, do you consciously have a strategy for that? How do you approach these sort of action scenes?
Short answer is no. No, I do. I quite like, I like writing things that are immediate. So action and dialogue are probably the things that come most naturally to me. But I'm also like a very physical person just in my life. Like I'm very aware of what's happening in my body. I did a lot of dancing growing up, so maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, I know for me, I think it's just I know where the bits of my body are. So like I do picture, it's really hard to describe because I do think it comes naturally, but yeah, because I am a very physical person, I guess it's easier to write that physicality. One thing I will say is as a reader, if a writer isn't as on top of like where people are situated in a scene, often like I'll hear that they moved. It's like, wait a minute, I didn't realize they were in that part of the room. And then I'll go back and try to like catch up and see what I missed. So it is something I notice when it's not there. But for me, I think like the physical side of the action isn't that difficult. It's more trying to keep up with the emotional side because in fact, there's a fight later in the book, which is in a flashback where Maria and Hannah are training together. And it's really boring until it isn't. But the beginning of the fight is very routine. Like they're going through the motions, it's sort of punch, kick, duck. And it doesn't feel interesting, even though like if you were watching it, the same things would be happening. And it's because like there's nothing at stake. You don't have that emotion. So one of the things I try to focus on is what is the person feeling in this moment? And I feel like that helps drive the action even more so than the physicality of it.
I love that because it's almost the opposite of what I would think when writing action of like, okay, what are they doing? But having it, and that makes sense in real life too, coming from their emotions and focusing there first and going action out from there. I love that approach. That's really smart.
Thank you.
And then how did you, because there's a lot of action scenes in the book, despite what apparently some of your reviews said, I think it's really did you put any conscious kind of effort into differentiating them to make them feel different or have them escalate at all?
No, I think it was not consciously. I think obviously it's an action book. You know that the final climactic battle scene needs to be the biggest one. So I always knew that one was going to be bigger. The others were really driven by the situation. So we've got, and the characters involved, because there are some that have people with superpowers in them, which obviously changes the dynamic, and there are some which don't. So like the very first action scene in the book is actually one that Hannah's not involved in. She's watching a recording of some security, no, not security footage, phone footage taken from a hostage in like a bank situation. And that has like her four siblings who all have superpowers, who end up fighting against other people who surprisingly have superpowers which they hadn't expected. So that sets up a very different fight to the one you just looked at, which is, three people who don't have any powers at all, and it's two grown men and Hannah, who's 16-year-old girl who has some training but a bit rusty. She's also a lot smaller than these guys and outnumbered, so that creates a very different dynamic. The first fight in the hostage situation is much more evenly balanced, whereas the one you were just looking at, that's quite short. Like, it's over before it's even begun, basically, because she's so outnumbered. And that wasn't a conscious decision. That's just, well, these are the pieces we have on the board and that's what's going to happen. Similarly, there's another one, the one where she's running from her home and her father sets her siblings on her. This is another one where she's far outmatched because she's got four people, so 4 against 1. 4 of them all have superpowers, she doesn't. So she is not fighting at all then. Like, all she can do is run and try to survive and escape from them to then figure out the next move. So yeah, there wasn't really a conscious effort to increase the stakes each time, except for knowing that I was heading towards this big battle at the end. It was more just knowing the people I had available and what would naturally arise from putting them against each other.
Beautiful. And I think that's the way you want it to be done. And I'm really taking this and learning from it. Even some of my action scenes, there's been a couple where you're like, and what were they doing? I like that.
Well, that's beta readers are great for that.
Yeah, they really are. You can get so caught up in the action that, yeah, just keeping an eye on, like, just focusing on the characters is what I'm really taking away. And I love that approach to it.
Sorry, I was just going to say, like, another note on action scenes is I think some writers, and in fact, when I was much younger trying to write, I did this as well. I think it's very easy to include action for the sake of action because you think, oh, people want big, exciting battle scenes or big, exciting fights. And no, they don't. Not if it doesn't mean anything, like if there's nothing at stake. So there's no point like inserting a fight scene or running scene or any type of action scene just for the sake of having it. Like, it needs to mean something when it comes to the character or the wider story.